Ron Van Dam, living proof that there is life after 40 for retired male strippers. Shake that thing, big dog, you still got it. You're listening to The Ron Van Dam Show on New England Broadcasting.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. It's The Ron Van Dam Show.
Okay, whatever.
Hold on tight, things can get a bit weird, if you like that sort of thing.
Hey, welcome to the program. I am Ron Van Dam. Thank you so much for being here. I've got allergies today, so if my voice is a little altered, it's because I have allergies, not because I have a fungus. Just want to say it. I know you don't want to get too close to your speaker under the circumstances, but I think we're going to be all right. Okay, all right, that's fine. I have an interesting guest on today's show. It's kind of a featured guest because he's going to talk about something that is so freaking obvious to me and to everybody. It's our division in this country and around the world based on our nationality, our skin color, etc. As human beings, we tend to group into groups, and we find comfort in a group that is like us. And we start putting labels on people just because they're part of a group or they look like something. You know, you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. But you know what? It's humanity. It's humanity. It's not something that we conjured up and all of a sudden we're divided. It's always been like that. It goes all the way back. I believe that the cavemen and the cave women, I don't want to leave them out, actually had wars and things like that because there was one group against another group. It's what we do in sports. Football games, baseball games, it's one group against another group. It's called competition, but it's a game. But in real life, it's not a game. It's real life. Am I making sense to you at all? Do you even understand what I'm talking about? Do you speak English? Oh, you do? Okay, fine. I'm getting through to you. I find it fascinating. I really do. I like to look inside to figure out what's actually going on. Of course, it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't solve anything. But when you understand why things are happening, it makes it a bit more palatable. But it doesn't solve anything. We always say that we've got to love each other. Well, we really do. But we can't. Because we form groups. And when you form groups, you get stuck in your group. And then you know, I do things this way, you do things that way. Religious groups. I mean, seriously, man. You know, this is what I believe in. Oh, yeah, this is what I believe in. Well, okay, fine. We respect that, but we form groups. So I don't know. And you're probably saying to me, Ron, I don't know what religion somebody is as opposed to somebody else. No, but you would if it came out. And, you know, I mean, it's not a horrible thing. I'm just making an example of how we group together. That's all I'm get off my back. That's all I'm doing. It's how we group together, how we find comfort in our group. You have to look like us. You have to talk like us, have the same stuff with us. I'll accept you, I can live with you, but you're not a part of my group. And that's our problem. You know, we keep talking about all these wars that are going on, you know, the conflicts. And they go back to times before there were even people almost. I mean, God, look at animals. Look at the freaking animals. For survival. They're in their habitat. A lion sees another lion or something like that. And they get into a scuffle. Why? Because it's another lion. And when it wants to be dominant over the other, or it's not a part of their den, like a Cub Scout group. It's natural. It's survival. Well, yeah, true, they eat each other sometimes, but not always. That's not always the reason for these wars and scuffles, to eat each other. What really makes me inquisitive and upset is when one group says, I want to annihilate the other group. The other group should not be existing. I want to end their existence now, and I will do it through killing and war. You need to be eliminated and wiped off the face of the planet. That sucks. That's beyond it, man. That's beyond it. And I've talked about this many times on this show. And that is the fact that we're not a human race. We should be better than that. We should have evolved. But we didn't. Some of us did. I think I did. I think you did. We don't love all other groups, but we tolerate them to the point where, yeah, we can get along and we can actually learn and enjoy their differences. But then there are the humans on this earth who just don't get it. They just don't get it. They didn't evolve. They're still those primitive animals. And if you push the buttons in the right order, their animal tendencies will come out and they will act like gigantic douchebags. I don't know how else to put it. We do not get better. We get worse. And that's humanity. Look at social media. Will you look at it? Will you look at social media? Putting people in groups, strangers arguing about politics, about the personality of somebody on social media. Did it make things better? No, it made things worse. As I've said before, the only thing I got out of social media is I don't have to remember when it's somebody's birthday. The social media will tell me when it's somebody's birthday, and I can take care of it there if I wish. Other than that, I'm not seeing the point. I'm not seeing the point. Well, Ron, if you're lonely and you're looking for someone who is like you. Yeah, I know. See, that's where, yeah, okay, fine. I get that. But that's not the point of social media. It's just not the point. The point is to take your head and put it somewhere where it doesn't belong. And before social media, things were just fine. Just fine. Anyway, my guest is going to join us momentarily. He's written a book about this, trying to explain and rationalize why we are so, I'll use the word racist, because it doesn't just have to be the skin color and all that kind of stuff with racism. And racism can be just, well, I have my group and I don't like your group, and that's it. That's the racism stuff. Because we all have our own personalities. If they're not like you, maybe they are, but you don't take the time to figure it out or to even get to know these people. Because there are a lot of nasty, horrible people within your group. But you don't go after them. You go after people who aren't in your group. And I'm not talking about Scrabble. Yeah, I mean, if someone doesn't know how to play Scrabble and doesn't play Scrabble well, you don't want to kill them, do you? All right, this is getting a little out of hand. Anyway, yeah, that's just been a pet peeve of mine. I don't understand why people can talk. I don't understand. I just don't get why there's this hostility and anger. Where'd it come from? It's a sign of weakness, the hostility and the anger. Definitely a sign of weakness. Don't you people go to church? All right. My guest is going to join us momentarily, but first, there's this.
I wanted to learn more about who I am and where I come from. You know, my family history.
I've always been curious about my genetic background. What makes me, me?
I needed to know myself better, and now I do, thanks to Who Is I.
Who Is I is the genetic ancestry testing kit you can use right in your own home. Using state-of-the-art technology from 30 years ago, Who Is I's patent-pending genetic testing protocols have been proven to be 96% accurate in up to 14% of tests, with a highly acceptable 7 to 10% margin of error. In today's market, there is no other ancestry test this accurate that's also called Who Is I.
My Who Is I test told me that I'm 79% Italian, 12% Tasmanian, and 6% Oldsmobile. It was so easy.
Who Is I says I'm 18% New Jerseyan, 42% French toast, and 16% unidentifiable goo. That's so good to know.
With one simple nasal swab test, plus a fingernail, elbow skin, half ounce of toe sweat, quarter pint of blood or mucus, and 3 drops of fluid from your left eye, Who Is I maps your genetic markers as accurately as a slightly out-of-date road atlas.
I had suspected for a long time that I'm descended from the lizard people of planet Zargon. Now, thanks to Who Is I know I'm actually from Flugamir 7 in the Andromeda system. Plus, I'm 3% Arapaho and 6% slightly used paper products.
Your Who Is I results will tell you not just about yourself, but your whole family tree as well with just one simple test.
I always wondered about my ancestors. Now I know that my great-great-grandfather was a bicycle tire. Thanks, Who Is I?
Who Is I Home Genetic Ancestry Testing. It's time to get to know yourself better.
Darius Kamali joins us now. He is an author at this point, but he's done so many things in his career and his life. Darius, you're like a metamorphosis from thing to thing, and they're all good. It's all good stuff.
Good morning. From butterfly to caterpillar. I'm going backwards.
Well, I don't know if that's true. let's just because you're an interesting individual. You started as you're an analyst with the State Department. Is that right?
Well, no, I was an analyst with a NGO, which is a non-governmental organization.
Okay.
But despite it being called a non-governmental organization, it was supported by the government.
All right, but not the State Department.
I was green and naive at the time.
Well,
it was the visual evidence wing for some tribunals for war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, everything horrible in the world, and transitioned to children's animation somehow. From there, it's been a long slide.
Well, but you've always been like an activist in the sense that what you saw before you was something that needed to be expressed.
You can definitely put it that way. You know, I'll tell you, everything that I've been involved with, although on the surface these are extremely different worlds, from the world of human rights, if you want to call it that, to Hollywood, whether it's on the documentary side or animation, but the theme that links these books to all that experience is a recurring one, and that's one of identity. Where, you know, I think and I mean this with the pun intended clearly, I think identity basically trumps all. Oh, yeah. That, you know, reason doesn't stand a chance if we don't address identity, for good or for bad. I saw it in the human rights world, of course, where a lot of these crimes are being committed by one group against another, ultimately because of who they see as the in-group and the out-group. And I see it on a much more superficial level across our culture, and certainly where I am now in Hollywood.
Yeah. And it was a very good pun, by the way. I appreciated that.
That's what I do.
Our civilization has from the very beginning been group against group, identity against identity, religious identity, like as far back as one can remember, and clubs and groups, and it's just that you feel that, like, as you go on in civilization, you should progress out of some of these battlefields, but kind of like we're going back into them.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I would go even further. I would say that in terms of how long it's been with us, I would say maybe it's as deep as the genetic level.
Yeah.
You know, I half-jokingly say in Mistake of Identity that maybe we're not meant for this civilization business. I mean, we need to genetically reconfigure ourselves through CRISPR technology or something like that. And that's only half-joke, jokingly said. But I think it goes back. It's part of evolution. It goes to even pre-human primates, and even prior to that, probably every species defines itself, whether consciously or unconsciously at a genetic level, against other groups. And so it's not something that I am in any way advocating trying to take on head on. It's too strong. I have it. You have it. Everyone has it, whether it's gender identity or racial or ethnic or national. But I think there's differences between these things, and we need to clear this up because we're schizophrenic as a society. I think, you know, there's a difference between something that you don't choose, for example, which is race, and a culture, which you do choose, presumably. And I think one is more valid than the other. I don't think all cultures are equal. I think some cultures are better than others, so long as they're defined. And so it gets complicated. But certainly, identity is at the heart of all of these things.
Is identity what is explaining what's happened within the past 4 or 5 years that has come out of the closet? So it's like identity came out of the closet.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. 4,000 or 5,000 years, you could say, right?
Yeah. Well,
But
okay.
yeah, absolutely. I think, look at our media. If you're talking about the United States, and this is by no means exclusive to the United States. I come from a multi-ethnic, multinational background, and I can tell you all the things that are going on here have been going on in other countries forever. They all have their Fox News and MSNBC, the equivalent of, they all have their taboos and third rails that you can't touch, sacred cows, whatever you want to call it. But certainly we have gotten to the point where I think it's certainly partly, at least because of social media, it's been exacerbated, you could say.
Yes, sir. I agree. No question about that. Differences are wonderful. It's just when they start chanting death to something that they are not in favor of, that's what gives me a little bit of a skin crawl.
Yeah, and it should. Again, here's what I would say to that is we need to distinguish between the person and the idea, right? And that when you put it that way, everyone sort of agrees it's almost a truism, but we don't really act on it. We're schizophrenic that way. So, the idea of, love your enemy, even though you don't like what he's doing. I'm not a hippie who, says, let's all get along. I think ideas are different. Religions are different. Ideologies, some are better than others. Cultures are different from each other, and they're not all equal, as long as you define what you're saying. Where I have a problem, again, is unchosen characteristics, such as where you happen to be born or your gender, so on and so forth. And these things have become conflated, right?
Yes.
So when you say I'm a Republican or a Democrat, it often has a lot to do with where you were born. Or if you say I'm a Christian or a Muslim, you may not have read the Bible or the Quran. You're just saying that because that's where you were born and that's what people around you are saying. And when those two things get conflated, then we're in serious trouble because now it's my team against yours, right?
Yes.
And you can't see it rationally anymore.
It's a bad football game.
It's a football game, yeah, and I wish it was a football game. At least, in football, despite the fact that, I use the analogy for sports and mistake of identity, saying, if you're I'll use basketball in this instance. If you're an LA Laker, that as much as you love the purple and gold, tomorrow you may be traded. So people don't confuse their identity as a member of a team with their more fundamental identity. But when it comes to race or gender or nationality, which are also unchosen characteristics, we do confuse those things, and that's sort of the beginning of the end.
It is. I mean, it reminds me of a basketball game where you have one team member knocking down the opposition onto the floor, so that they can't shoot the ball. But then when the person falls down on the other team, the hand being stretched out is not from a team member; it's from the person from the other team helping them up.
That's right, sportsmanship.
Yeah, so difference is totally incredible, intense, sometimes violent competition, but the hand goes out because it's a game.
And I think that might be a partial solution to this. We already have it in sports.
Yes.
If we can channel this, again, I say from the beginning, I am as groupist, and I use the term in the book groupist to kind of cover all these different isms, right? As anyone else. But if we can channel it and learn to have that twinkle in the eye that that I know that ultimately this is sort of a game, right?
Yes. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is. Let's talk about what you're doing here. You went into documentaries and hobnobbed and with getting to know some celebrities and actors and such, and then you went into writing. How did that happen?
Well, I transitioned from human rights into documentaries, and that was originally a fairly smooth transition because it was documentaries having to do with human rights.
Right.
But I found that as my role grew, nature of the documentaries became more and more commercial, right?
Yes.
So it went from the history of the CIA to cheesy shows like Secret Passages on History Channel, so on and so forth. And we ended up in animation. We made a couple of animated features called Igor, Hero of Color City, with John Cusack, Jay Leno, so on and so forth. Very proud of all that. But of course, even in this world, which I thought was the furthest thing you could possibly get from the world I had come from, identity is still king, whether it's the sort of stories that are being told or the battles right now over representation of the different races and ethnicities. It's really gotten out of hand. And I think people just haven't thought deeply enough about these things. And we're going in circles, playing musical chairs, thinking that progress is being made, but is it really? And that's what that's what these books are about. It's my pandemic-inspired musings on where are we going with all of this, folks.
Yeah. Interesting. You also did a collection of dark poems in Dog Whistling Dixie Past the Graveyard.
Yes, that's right. I'm glad you noticed that there are two books that have come out during the pandemic era. The first one, I would say, is more, the subtitle is actually Poetic Meditations, and that's Dog Whistling Dixie Past the Graveyard. And the second one is, I would describe it as a combination of the postmodern contemporary tweet with a 19th century tradition of aphorisms. So these are short little parables. This is light reading. It can be done probably in an hour or so.
Oh, that's
yeah. So I wouldn't call either of them poetry per se, but they are short and they're brief and they're concise. And so you would have to really define poetry broadly to.
Right.
They're genre breakers. How about that? They're
that's nice.
A hybrid genre.
That's nice. I love the titles of your books, by the way. It's not just a title. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm into the long titles, it seems.
Well, no.
Dog Whistling Dixie Past the Graveyard, and then Mistake of Identity also has a subtitle, which is Midnight Musings and Twisted Tweets on Postmodern Identity. So,
yes, that is a long
one. I like the titles.
That's actually the whole first chapter.
Exactly.
No, but I mean the basis of the title, Mistake of Identity. It's just that's perfect. It's I like that very, very much.
Yeah, I thought it was a good play on mistaken identity, but it's mistake of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just came together. They say writers have a muse, and so that's I think what happened here.
Yeah. Well, what's next on the agenda for you?
Well, I have several others. I think I'm going to continue the book publishing business. I have several others coming out over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. So maybe we'll have to do this again.
Maybe we will.
And I've gotten to the stage. I'll leave it with this.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the stage in my life where I really need to make sure that I get my ideas out. And I found that with writing, especially independent writing, you don't have to raise a ton of money. You don't have to persuade a distributor. You don't have to have investors. It's you and a keyboard. And so I really enjoy the independence of being able to say what I want to say without fear of offending others.
Well, unless you do a scathing thing about someone's family, I guess.
No interest in that sort of person.
Oh, not like the Kardashians or anything?
No, not for me. Not for me.
No, I don't think so.
There's too much of that here,
Well, I think that's a polar opposite.
I live in Los Angeles. Don't get me started.
You can always move, Darius. I don't know. Okay. Once again, the books, the simple titles are Mistake of Identity, Dog Whistling Dixie Past the Graveyard, but you'll find them probably all on a website, which you're going to tell me about.
Sure. Well, there's two ways. Actually, my personal website is simply my name, which is DariusKamali.com, Kamali. And both of the books, Dog Whistling Dixie Past the Graveyard and Mistake of Identity, can be found on Amazon.
Excellent.
I think we're all too familiar with Amazon these days.
I believe so. I believe Amazon is my father. Talk about identity.
Well, you must be a very, very wealthy son.
I just mean as a general broad thing. If they're going to be involved and own everything, might as well be me. I don't know. Okay, Darius, perfect. Pleasure speaking to you, and people should Google you and get involved because it's an intelligent way of noticing what's really going on in our society, and it's a smart way to do it.
It was a pleasure speaking with you. We'll have to do it again.
We will. Thank you so much. Well, that'll do it for me today. Thank you to my guest. That was very enlightening. I'll be back again on Monday with a brand new program. I don't do this over the weekend. Give me a break, okay? But Monday I'll be back. Will you join me then? We'll tackle some other kind of thing that bothers us. And things, you know. Is that what this all sounds like to you? Anyway, you know, my parting words are, everybody deserves to be on this planet, unless they abuse it. Then they don't. But everybody has their own life. If you can't accept it, then just leave them alone. They have a right to exist as well with their own group. Okay, kids, have yourself a wonderful day. I wish you peace.